Now that you've seen our campaign, we will give you a deeper look into the problem that inspired us to make it. In this scene, David, as a teacher, explains the problem of the stigma of mental disorders, and the rest of us, as students, discuss it and give examples. Throughout the rest of the film, we will discuss the importance and the relevance of the problem. We will also discuss the goal of the campaign, how we created it, and how we shared our campaign.
Hello, today we're going to be talking about the negative stigma on mental illness and mental disorders and the problems that it causes. The first problem of which being the mislabeling of people with mental disorders as being dangerous, crazy, insane, all these negative and hurtful things, and it causes people to get rejected from their groups, from their friends, ostracized in their classes. And the next would be denying treatment. People can live more normal lives when they have treatment, but the stigma keeps them from getting that treatment. The next would be denying the existence of mental disorders as a whole, which relates to the denial of treatment because they don't believe it, so they won't go and seek help. The next would be that it can cause additional disorders. If you're ridiculed every day for the way that you act and for your personality, then it can cause you to develop social anxiety. And the last would be the media portrayal, which is often bad, and they portray it with that mislabeling as being dangerous or the people as being crazy. And that is untrue. First, we're going to be talking about the stigma of mental illness and what it is. Well, generally people think of mental illness and people with it as being dangerous or bad people, or that it's uncontrollable and they're crazy. But these stereotypes are not true. As you can see by looking on the Mayo Clinic's website, as I had you look before, the symptoms show that no one with any of the illnesses such as OCD, depression, or anxiety disorders are a danger in normal situations to anyone except for themselves. And also that these symptoms are manageable with all sorts of treatments such as therapy or medication. And yet, even with them not being dangerous and not being super eccentric, they're still stigmatized. They're rejected by their groups. People in schools get rejected and bullied. And this is a really big problem. I asked you guys to research these topics beforehand, and does anyone have any thoughts on this? Cassidy?
I found that in 2014, according to StopBullying.gov, people who have anxiety or are depressed have a higher risk of being bullied. And this is a problem because this bullying can often increase problems that are already existent with their disorders and actually just make their disorders worse or maybe give them another disorder.
Yeah, and so not only is it, mean, but it can have a lasting effect on someone when they're bullied. And they use this stigma as a club to bully people with. The next big parts are the denial of treatment for mental disorders, and along with that, the denial of existence of mental disorders. And as we've talked about, treatments can help manage your lives and make them happier and healthier. And so obviously if you're denying the treatment for whatever reason, you don't believe in it, or you don't want to be associated with the negative stereotype that comes along with being diagnosed, your life will not benefit from the medications that can help you manage it. Anyone have any ideas on this? How many people? Eliza?
There was a survey done by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in 2013, and they surveyed 35 states, and of those 35 states, 40% of people admitted to suffering from some sort of mental illness, and 53.4% of those people admitted to not getting any help for their disorder.
Yeah, so plenty of people have issues, but for whatever reason, they don't look for that treatment to help them. And you know, this ties along with the denial of existence, which there are plenty of people who say they're fake, or that treatments at least are fake, and this is harmful. Anyone find any research on that? Eliza again.
I read an article in the New York Times written by Benedict Carey in 2012, and he documented an anti-psychiatry movement started by Thomas Szasz in the 1960s, which it's still even going on today. And he actively tried to get people to stop treating their mental disorders and tried to convince people that mental disorders weren't a thing to be worried about.
Yeah, and that's especially damaging because we can see by looking at the symptoms that there is harmful things to themselves, and it is a problem, and it's something to worry about. And yeah. The media's representation or misrepresentation of mental illnesses. They often show people with mental disorders as being weird, strange, that stereotypical crazy, very eccentric. Cassidy?
Yeah, you guys all know the show on MTV called True Life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember watching an episode that aired on December 22nd, 2005 called MTV True Life, I Have OCD. And the only type of people they portrayed were the people with super severe forms of OCD, like the people who had to switch on a light switch a certain number of times before they could enter the room. And I just think that's not really an accurate portrayal of mental disorders, because not all people with that disorder are so extreme.
Yeah, that's true. All you ever see on TV shows or in the news is the people who are really, you know, extreme and seem to not be managing it, when really you can, and those people are you know, very few. And another big thing is they often show people with mental disorders as being dangerous on the news. Whenever you see a shooting or something like that, they always have them be bipolar or something. Yes, Alex?
Yeah, I was reading something about that in Time Magazine, an article in 2012 that said only between 5 and 10% of all murders were committed by someone with a mental illness. And also, people with schizophrenia, only 1% of those people committed an act of violence that was enough to result in hospitalization or permanent injury of the individual.
Yeah, and everyone always thinks of schizophrenia as being, you know, people with it being violent, or you know, crazy, but they're not. And every time you see those shootings, they never mention that they don't have it. They just mention that they have it, and it seems to lead us to believe that everyone with it is dangerous, and that's what they say again and again, and it reinforces that stigma, makes it worse, and that's really harmful.
Change is important. If we reduce the stigma, people will be accepted for who they are.
Decreasing the stigma can reduce cases of bullying.
Change is important because it can help people feel more comfortable in getting treatment.
I feel like this problem is relevant to everyone because many people experience different levels of mental disorders, be it depression, anxiety, or even trouble concentrating. However, some individuals, those diagnosed, would be more prone to these problems. For example, most students regularly sit in the same seat in class, and if someone were to sit in your seat, you might feel slightly uncomfortable. This is a compulsion, which is a symptom of OCD. However, only with enough of these issues would you be diagnosed. But we all feel some portion of the problem.
Many of us know someone with a mental disorder, whether we know it or not.
I found the national percentage of people with depression and anxiety. According to the National Institute of Mental Health in 2014, 8.2% of American adults were diagnosed with depression in a given year. Additionally, there are 18.1% of American adults diagnosed with anxiety disorders.
If you apply these stats to the UNI population of 10,655 undergraduate students, based on the national statistics, 874 UNI students would have depression and 1,929 students would have an anxiety disorder.
Our goal was to make people want to educate themselves, and through this normalize the topic of mental illness, which would then reduce the stigma that our society has towards mental illness.
To inspire people to learn more about mental illnesses, we work to elicit feelings of guilt and anger in our campaign video, which may cause students to evaluate their own behaviors.
So we made our campaign dramatic and quick to the point. We wanted it to be interesting and show the point without being cheesy.
Finally, we offered a site to find more information regarding mental illness so that students can follow through and learn more.
To share this campaign, we made use of social media, the most relevant way to share with college students. We uploaded the video to YouTube, we tweeted it, and we shared it on a Facebook page with extra information about mental disorders. Then, we encouraged our friends to join in the sharing.
We asked UNI students what words they associate or have heard associated with particular mental disorders. We compiled them into sections, each disorder with its associated stereotypes. Then we selected dramatic music to help inspire the guilty feelings and produced the video via iMovie.